Hey there guys, back again with another video. So this is going to be continuing on from the previous video that I made. So the last video was talking about what the TV series Dark Matter is, kind of what's it about, the characters that are in it, just kind of an introduction to the series. I had meant to start getting into the first episode, the pilot. Getting more into detail into that, but the video ended up going a bit longer than I thought. So I just cut it off there, and in the time since I made that video and the time that I'm making this video, I actually decided that it would take a little too long to go through the videos themselves also just I want a more real reaction and kind of a more in the moment kind of analysis for the episodes. So if I went from the pilot all the way to episode 13, the last episode in season 1, it would take a fairly long time, and the stuff that I talked about in them would not necessarily be like my gut reactions to them, which is kind of what I want for this show. So rather than go through one episode at a time until we reach the end of the season, I decided, I'm just going to give a brief analysis of what I thought of the major plot points in each of the episodes. That way we can get to where I am and in the series, which is actually I just finished the first episode of season 2, the premiere for season 2. So just gonna give a brief outline and analysis of what I think of the first episode, or the first season. Sorry about that. The first season of Dark Matter, and that way my videos coming up of after I've seen those episodes will be a much more natural reaction, very much more in the moment, kind of talking about what I think of the episodes rather than looking back, which is what I want. So starting off with the pilot for Dark Matter, the pilot is very much descriptive. It's very outlining how the show is going to go. It makes it very clear that the characters are supposed to be very ambiguous. They're supposed to be very, like, all of them are different in their own ways, and you have to figure them out as you go along. And it's basically just an introduction to the characters, how they react to situations, what their mindset is, what their goals are, stuff like that. So, pilot episode, all 6 characters wake up. They wake up with no memory of who they are or what they're doing there, and you're kind of seeing them acclimatize to the situation. You're seeing the way they deal with it, the way they understand it, and the way they react when they meet the other crew members of the ship. So major plot points, they discovered the original destination of the ship before life support failed and they were taken out of stasis. The destination is a small mining colony on a planet. And there is a corporation, there's a mining corporation which is trying to kind of take over where they're living, so that they can gain access and kind of do whatever they want. And so, in the episode, in the pilot, there's a lot of debate between the characters of whether they should help the mining colony kind of fight off the corporation, which is going to come and try and get rid of them, so that they can have control over the resources on the planet. So there's debate between that, and there's also debate about whether they should give them some of or all of their weapons, the weapons that they have on board the ship. They found a shipment of weapons that they were transporting. And there's a lot of debate about that, and at the end of the episode, oh yeah, this I should mention, by the way, this entire video is probably going to be spoiler alert. I'm just going to be talking exactly what happened in each episode. So at the end of the pilot, the last thing you see in the pilot is 2 calls everyone up onto the bridge, where Android, or as I know her, 7, explains to them all that she was able to recover some data recover some of the corrupted data, and she found, pardon me, she found their files, their personnel files, and it turns out I'm not going to say cliffhanger at the end, but the big reveal at the end is that they're a group of mercenaries who more than likely have been hired by the corporations to kill the miners, rather than help them with the shipment of arms as they were thinking before. And then the pilot ends. Episode 2 is a continuation of the pilot, which I'm actually a fan of, because in pilots, TV series tend to try and cram too much into one episode. I'm a big fan of two-part pilots, really, of having one episode where everything is explained, everything is kind of set up, and then in episode 2 that setup is continued and resolved. I'm a fan of that. So I enjoyed that. So episode 2 is basically surrounded, or is basically focused around saving the colony. They decide to give the colony some of their weapons, and they, as they're on their way, like, all that they decided was that they would give half of the weapons that they had to the mining colony, and then they would book it. But partway through, something goes wrong. The Raza, which is the ship that they were on, is disappeared. They can't go get it. It's set up to look like 2 has kind of betrayed them. She's accepted money from the corporations, and she has booked it on out of there and left everyone else basically to die. Which I wasn't a big fan of, because since it was so early on in the series, it was so blatantly obvious that she was going to come back and rescue everyone at the end. But yeah, the main focus of episode 2 was everybody protecting the mining colony as best they could from the soldiers hired by, or employed by the corporation, the mining corporation. That's the main focus of the episode. I had quite a few laughs in this episode. I thought it was just an absolute hilarious episode, and I do not mean it in a good way. It was not good at all. The reason that I was laughing at it. And that's the thing, I wasn't laughing with it, I was laughing at it. Their idea of what combat looks like, their idea of how militias and militaries, like, what their tactics are and how they fight, how they move, what kind of tactics that they have, was just absolutely hilarious. There was one scene that I just found absolutely hilarious. It's when, so there are soldiers inside the building that everyone is defending. It's a reactor, it's a nuclear reactor that they're defending. And there are soldiers inside the building already, and they're going through, storming it, and they're searching it, and, dispatching people as they find them. And they're going through, and behind them, behind those soldiers who are going and searching, there are soldiers dropping down, sliding down the ropes, just breach style, breaching the compound, breaching where they are, which made absolutely zero sense, because that tactic, that strategy, is used as a surprise tactic. It's used to be very quick, very efficient, gather intel kind of thing, almost like the law enforcement version of a smash and grab thing. It's meant to be a breach tactic. It's nothing else. So it made absolutely zero sense for them to be roping in after the soldiers have already breached, which was hilarious. And then there's just a whole bunch of weird scenes where there are people just standing out in the open rather than taking cover. There are people who have guns in their hands and could quite easily take someone out, but instead draw their knife and kind of just casually walk up to them and then get dispatched. Like, it's a bunch of just kind of like meaningless things, things just nonsense that didn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm not saying it was bad, but it definitely wasn't good. The combat, definitely not one of their strong points. And so they really have to work, because of that, they have two options. Either they can work really hard on making those work, on making those kind of make more sense, kind of get a better flow, even. Just kind of get their legs under them for bigger combat scenes. Or option number two, they have to compensate for this with something else. Preferably character development. That would be nice, is having character development, and they do an okay job at character development throughout the season. So, props to them on that. But yeah, they definitely do need to figure out a way to compensate for this. So that's kind of the highlight of the episode for me, is just the laughs that I got from that. But then, they successfully defend the colony through great trial, and then, as things are looking grim or bleak, and so on, 2 comes back. She returns. She appears miraculously out of nowhere, and she's followed by I think 3 or 4 frigates or cruisers. 3 or 4 ships from she went and got from an opposing or a rival corporation, and so it's basically explained to to the other corporation that this mining colony is defended by them. Because they just got a deal negotiated by 2. And now the trading rights make it so that nobody really wins, and so the corporation just kind of backs off. Which was good writing. I did like that. I didn't like the way it was set up. It was such a cheesy episode. It was very quite obvious that she was going to come back. Because she's one of the main characters, and there was a lot of focus put on her and what she could do and so on, and she wasn't just going to leave. That didn't make any sense whatsoever. So that was fairly obvious. But other than that, I really did like it because the writing was actually alright. It was actually pretty good for it. Episode 3. Episode 3 might be my least favorite episode of the whole season. I can't say for certain, as I might remember things later on, but as I think on it, episode 3 is probably the worst episode of the season, from my point of view. And the reason for this is they use such an overused angle. They focus the episode on a concept which is just repeated so often. During an FTL jump, so they're in FTL, faster than light travel, they're on a jump and they're headed towards the space station, and the ship falls out of FTL for apparently no reason. Android runs some diagnostics and discovers that more than likely the ship has been sabotaged. And then the entire episode is just trying to figure out who might have sabotaged the ship, while also figuring out how to repair the ship. And it's just, it's so painfully obvious how each of the characters are going to react. So 3 is a mercenary through and through. He doesn't really care about anyone else. He is portrayed as not really caring about anyone else but himself, only thinking for himself, and just kind of not caring about anyone else. one is portrayed as being someone with high morality, with a lot of morals, and just kind of as that person, that kind of character. And it's just made so obvious that they are both going to doubt each other in the episode. And then there's just a whole bunch of things talking about who might have done what. Just stuff like that. People getting locked up and then something happening and they're like, oh, it wasn't them, actually. It was good writing, but it was not original writing. And it was just so blatantly obvious what was going to happen in the episode. So that was episode 3 for me. Not the best, maybe the worst. That being said, episode 4, and I'm looking at my notes because I just took quick little things. Episode 4 is an up in my eyes, actually. Definitely did a lot better than episode 3, and better than the pilot and episode 2 as well, I would argue. So probably their best episode yet, which does make sense. They'll get better. They get better as the show continues, much as this channel will get better as the videos continue. Hopefully. So episode 4, the crew of the Raza, land on a space station. They arrive at a space station. And they get off and they go do their separate things. They go off to sell some of their equipment, get some money so that they can buy food, so they can buy supplies, so that they can repair the ship, so on and so forth. The biggest thing that happens is, well, first of all, you find out that 2 has some serious fighting skills. I mean, you kind of saw a little bit of it in the pilot, but you see it much more on point in episode 4. And you also find out that 5 is very good at hustling, or what is known as hustling in today's world, which is just basically tricking people out of their money. You find out that she's good at that, and then they go to a casino. 2 and 5 go to a casino, and they just make a bunch of money. And then the casino kicks them out, or tries to kick them out. And then 2 gets angry and just kind of kills everyone. I don't think she kills everyone, but she kills a few people and knocks everyone else out. And there's a big thing about how 5 is totally freaked out by the fact that 2 managed to kill some people without any seeming remorse whatsoever, which was kind of expected. Personally, I would have preferred a little more to that. There wasn't a whole lot of focus put on that, but they did do a pretty good job with it. But the biggest thing that happened in the episode, the biggest thing is happens with 1 and 3. So they've not at all gotten over their altercations in episode 3, which I mentioned before. And one of the main things that happens is they go to sell some of the weapons, or they go to sell the rest of the weapons that they have in order to get enough money to repair the ship. And eventually they get conned, they get tricked, and they're knocked unconscious, get tied up, and they are interrogated by who you find out to be the real Jace Corso. So Jace Corso is the real name of 1. 1, it turns out, actually snuck aboard the Raza, which of course he has no memory of, but that's what happens. So he is an imposter. Like, something has happened. He's either had plastic surgery done on him, or he's a clone, or whatever. But he looks exactly like the Jace Corso who was in front of them right then. So they're interrogated by them. There's a lot of talk about how it could possibly have happened, and it's made pretty clear that this Jace Corso guy is much more of a badass and much less of a morality kind of guy than 1 is. And so it's a nice contrast there, which I liked a lot. and I have kind of like, I'm not really decided on how much I like this, but 1 in 3 manage to escape by working together, but they don't resolve anything. They manage to get out alive. They manage to save themselves, and they only manage to do that by working together, by formulating a plan together and executing it. Which is usually when TV series are like, you know, we have our differences, but we can work together, you know, kind of stuff like that. Which would have been a little boring, a little safe, but I might have liked it better. I like that they went for something different, but I might have liked it better that way. So what they ended up going for was 3, 1 in 3 did not resolve this situation. They didn't suddenly decide that they could work together and that they could put aside their differences. They still had a lot of differences. And so that was a little dangerous. I was very interested in seeing how that would go on in the future, to see how that would work out. And then the ending to the episode happened. It wasn't the exact end, but it was kind of like, that's where the episode ended for me. And I actually, when I was watching it, I had to pause it and literally get up and walk away and just calm down for like 10 minutes, because it was the worst. It was just, it was so bad in my eyes. In my eyes. Not necessarily in everyone else's, but it was so bad in my eyes. So 3 decided, or made the decision that he was going to blackmail 1 with this information. Like, you know, you have to support me in all of the votes on the ship, on the decisions that we're gonna make. You have to basically do whatever I tell you, and, you know, or else I'm gonna tell the crew about the fact that you're an imposter on the ship. And that maybe it was probably you that sabotaged the ship, and, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, like, how are they gonna forgive you for that and stuff? And so he's blackmailing him with this information. And it just, like, I was okay with the blackmailing part. I was okay with that. But I was legitimately terrified by how they were going to play it out. Because the main thing that was mentioned was, you are going to have to support me during the crew votes, during the votes that the crew has on what decisions they should make, or on what they should do, the decisions they make on what they should do. Now, normally 2 is usually the deciding factor. She's kind of the self-appointed, unopposed leader of the crew, but they have debates and they have votes about what they should do. And 3 is blackmailing 1 for support in these votes. And God, this revelation, the idea that this could be what it's about, that this could come about to happen, was terrifying for me. Because, I'll be quite honest with you, I do not need another Lost. Lost is not a TV series that I need another of. Don't get me wrong, I love Lost. I loved Lost. Not the end of it. Obviously, that goes without saying. Same with Heroes. Like, the beginning is always better than the end of the series. But, you know, I liked Lost, but I've had enough of it. Just like, I absolutely did not want this series to turn into this whole backroom politics, trying to, you know, garner support one way or another on different things. Like, I couldn't stand it. Pardon me. I couldn't stand it if that were to happen, just because there was so much potential for this series in being sci-fi and in being something different. And then it seemed like it was going to become another Lost, which was just, it pissed me off so much. I had to go calm down. But as we go on through the series, things do get better. It doesn't end up going like that. So that was good for me. I appreciated that, and I managed to get over it. Yeah, so we're gonna end that episode here. So we covered episodes 1, or the pilot, all the way to episode 4. Yeah, we covered all the way to episode 4. I'll try and get through as many as I can in the next video. I'll try and be a bit more brief, kind of talk about more what happened in it and less about how I felt, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's going to be today's episode, or that's going to be today's video. If you liked it, please share with your friends. Would be appreciated. And yeah, thanks for listening. Next episode, we'll get into as many episodes as we can. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.